As is a tricky word in English, and even in advanced constructions, it can be difficult because it often comes in this as pattern.
We've got 6 patterns for you today that native speakers use all the time, and once you've got them, you've got them. You'll start to hear native speakers use them a lot. So we definitely want to bring these out to you today because this is a mark of fluency.
Let's talk about it. What's up, guys, and welcome back to Waiguo Friends English. You are probably familiar with the most common pattern for using as, which is as adverb as possible. So for example, Dawn ran as fast as possible, but still lost the race. Sorry, Dawn. Or another thing you could say is as soon as possible. So we'll finish this project as soon as possible. We have shortened this even further to ASAP. ASAP, as soon as possible, ASAP.
You can also use this pattern to exaggerate something very negatively. So you could say, he finished the project as slowly as possible.
Oh.
Okay? If you want to translate that, it's basically, he was very slow.
Or you could say something like, the cat looked at the mouse munching on her food as lazily as possible.
Meaning that cat did not do its job.
No, not at all.
But that pattern's so common, you've probably heard of it quite a bit, and you probably learned it as an intermediate. So let's get over into the more advanced levels. You can also use 2 as's with an adjective. So you can have as, adjective, as, it or that with a verb. As amazing as the concert was, I think it was overpriced. We use this pattern to soften our statement. My blunt statement here would be, that concert was overpriced. It was too expensive. That would be the blunt way to say it, but to just kind of be a little bit softer because maybe I don't know what my friends thought or if they agree with me or if they thought it was worth every dollar. If I don't know, I might use something like this. It's like, as awesome as it was or as amazing as it was, I think it was overpriced. And that's a kind of a safer, softer way to put forward my opinion.
It's kind of like showing the 2 sides of the coin, where you can say, I had some pros, but yeah, I also had some cons. And what I'm really saying are the cons. I'm really talking about the disadvantages, but I want to recognize that there are good things to it.
This is actually a strategy a lot of people use in small talk. If they're talking to somebody who they don't know their opinion on something, they'll say something like this. And then over the course of the conversation, they'll stress the good thing or the bad thing, whichever one the person agrees with most. So if the person responds talking about how amazing that thing was and say, it really was amazing. Like, it was worth it to me. I'm so glad I came. Then you can continue the conversation focusing on that. If they're like, I don't know if it was worth the money to me, then you could focus on that. So it's kind of like you want to put your opinion out there because they asked or something like this, but then you can kind of follow the conversation whichever way they want to go.
It's very safe, but you're probably leaning more towards the second whatever was being said. That's your real, like, personal opinion.
Another one example of this is, as tasty as fried chicken is, my stomach can't handle that much grease today. And that's kind of like a soft way of saying, like,
We're not going there.
If you're driving around and somebody says, I kind of want some chicken today. I want some fried chicken. You want to go to KFC? And then you can say, as tasty as fried chicken is, or as tasty as that sounds, I don't think my stomach can handle it. That's a very polite way to say, no, I don't want fried chicken.
You can also use this in a negative way to emphasize the positive flip side of the coin, to show that there's a silver lining of whatever happened. So for example, as destructive as the tornado was, it brought the community together.
And you could see, like, the translation to that is, because of the tornado, people got together, or the community really came together in supporting one another after the tornado. So you could say it as plain vanilla as that, but we like to use this as construction because it just sounds nicer in a way. It's trying to say, like, I recognize that this was a horrible thing and people lost their homes. Some people could have been injured or killed, but the good side is the community. Whereas if you come right out of the gate, like, look, the community is all together. That's awesome. You're totally negating the horrible thing that happened that caused them to come together. You want to be sensitive to the situation, but also make the point that you want to make.
You really want to show that both sides of the coin. You're not just saying, wow, this is really great. You're saying, I am fully knowledgeable that there was something awful that happened, but there's a silver lining.
It's a big cultural thing, really.
Another example of this is, as mean as Charlie's dog is to everyone else, it really helps to calm down Charlie's social anxiety.
And this basically means that dog is mean to everybody, but he's really nice to Charlie, and it helps Charlie, like, get out around people. Again, you could say it that way, but using this as pattern just really shows a well-rounded perspective. You can also add a prepositional phrase after the as adjective as pattern.
So for example, as volatile as cryptocurrency is in the stock market, I still invested in it.
So it basically means like, those stocks are crazy, but I still do it. Again, you could say it as simply as that, but this as pattern is more fluent.
Or another example of this is, as painful as walking can be in physical therapy right now, Pete knows that it's necessary for healing.
And this is basically like, walking hurts right now. Physical therapy hurts, but he's doing it because it's necessary. So a third construction is to use this as adjective as plus I am plus a prepositional phrase. We use this particularly in questions. So, are you as excited about the trip as I am? So we add it in order to make our own statement and then to invite them to agree with us.
It can be inviting them to agree with us, but it can also be searching for validation. So you're asking them basically, if you're going to break it down to its contents, is, are you excited? Because I am excited. And I want you to be excited with me. But that sounds really silly to word it that way in native English. So what you do is you say, this is where I am. Where are you right now?
Me.
Hopefully you're with me in this camp, in this group. And it's a very silly way to do it. But you're saying, I am really excited, or it could be said in a negative way as, I'm really scared or I'm really angry. You want people to basically jump on the bandwagon with you. You want to say, I want you to be in my area.
Sometimes we'll use it when we see that person feeling a very strong emotion and they're kind of over in the corner. They're not confident enough to share that with anybody, or they're just not willing to step out, but you can see that they want to interact, but they don't think that they can. This is a way to invite them and show them, I also feel the way that I see that you're feeling. We do this a lot with kids especially, or with people that are extreme introverts and they want to talk to somebody, but they don't want to start that conversation. This is a great way to start that conversation. Another one, for example, is like, are you as bored of phone games as I am? Okay, so if you're all like sitting in the doctor's office and you notice every single person is playing a phone game, this is an obvious statement that you can make, and people might be like, yes, I am. Can we just talk or do something else? Like, can we just, I don't know what's going on back there. Maybe there's an emergency, whatever it is. But the translation to that is, phone games are super boring. Do you agree? And it's kind of like a signal, like, are you ready to do something else? Can we do something together instead of sit here playing our phone games?
A very similar and related pattern is get as adjective as I do when doing something, when walking or when listening or when playing phone games, for example.
So you could say, do you get as miserable as I do when running?
Yes, I do.
So you can use this when you find out in small talk that somebody has a similar hobby as you. And maybe it's running, okay? And running is grueling. It's a bit exhausting unless you have a runner's high, unless you get really excited about running. But if you haven't gotten there yet, in your running journey, you might kind of reach out to relate to somebody saying, do you hate it as much as I do? Basically, do you get as miserable as I do? Do you struggle with it as much as I do? And that can start off a whole conversation on something that you guys relate in.
Or another example is, do you get as nervous as I do when looking down from heights? Because I am honestly scared of heights.
So Josh, if he goes to the top of a tower and there's a glass walkway where he can look down off the edge of the tower, if he notices somebody else, like a kid or just another person, he bumps into them on accident and they're freaking out too, very obviously, he can say, hey, do you get as nervous as I do looking at heights? It's a way to help that person know that they're not the only one. Yeah. So in a sense, it's a way to make them feel better. But at the same time, it's a good way to start a conversation. There's a lot of things. Just make sure that you take something kind of obvious. You don't want to call out somebody feeling an emotion if they don't actually feel that emotion. That's not good. That would be a bad way to start off the conversation.
Yeah. So a good example of that is like if you said, man, do you feel as dumb as I do when taking this test? And if the person's like, no, I nailed that test, then it's like, oh, awkward. There's no validation there. There's no empathy.
No saving yourself from that. You just dissed yourself, made a wrong assumption about somebody else publicly. You can also add a full dependent clause on the end of this pattern to be more specific. So do you get as uncomfortable as I do when a person stares at you? It's kind of like testing the waters a little bit. It's a safe way to ask a question of somebody in a much more specific context. Basically, people staring at me makes me feel uncomfortable. Is it the same for you? Like, what about you? It's kind of the same idea.
Another example is, do you get as frustrated as I do when a driver cuts you off? That when or which or where, those dependent clauses at the end are actually surprisingly common with this construction.
The fifth pattern that we're going to show you today is as soon as plus an independent clause. Much simpler. We use this pattern to give context mostly in time. Gary left as soon as he heard about the accident. Basically means he left when. This one you can replace as soon as with when. And if you use a grammar checker in your writing, you will notice that it wants you to change that as soon as to when. But again, in speaking, it sounds good to say as soon as, so we tend to use it.
Another example of this is Sandra was hired as soon as she graduated university.
This pattern is pretty straightforward. Likely you've already heard it quite a bit, and I hope that you're listening for it as you watch movies and listen to podcasts in English.
The sixth and final pattern for using as and as is, as much as I would like to blank. For example, as much as I would like to say no, I simply can't.
This is a way to gently say no. I kind of want to, but also not. Sometimes this is an outright lie. I will say that. But sometimes people, they genuinely want to, it's just they can't because of their schedule or something else conflicts in timing with it. So for example, as much as I would like to eat shrimp with you, I can't while I'm seasick. That's kind of the idea. It's like, I'm seasick right now. You just enjoy that over there.
You do you, I'm not. Sorry. Or you could say, as much as I would love to stay and chat, I've got to get going. Sorry.
This one's actually kind of funny. And you can hear it in our media, in our movies, TV shows. Somebody will say it in a kind of a sarcastic tone, meaning like, as much as I would love to sit here and chat.
I love that.
I'm not. I've got to go. That's exaggerated in TV shows for comedic effect. We don't do that in real life unless we are just trying to show that person. It's very rude to answer somebody sarcastically in that sense. Sometimes you'll get like teenage kids doing that to their parents to just kind of like jab at them, be kind of rude. You don't want to do that. Or you'll hear parents do that to little kids, like, you want to stay and continue playing Tea Party for another hour? As much as I would like to stay here and do that, I really don't want to, okay? That's kind of the idea. So it is a gentle way to say no, kind of gentle. It can be used in a very comedic and exaggerated way as well.
All right, guys, these are our 6 grammar patterns using as and as. The reason why we do these kinds of videos is because they're difficult. It's not a simple plug and chug equation. It's not mathematics, it's expression. So that's the reason why we do these videos. We have other grammar check videos that we have a whole playlist about. You can check that out here. We hope that this video enlightened you today, and we hope that these push you to get out and actually speak a real English speakers.
Yes, that's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching.